Morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this very exciting day today, the second day of May 2023. Well, temperatures are 15 degrees and mostly cloudy. Yes, it is cloudy as I look out, but a little bit on the cooler side, which is not too bad, 15 degrees, getting up to about 20 later in the day. So that's the forecast for today. Well, right now, let's get on with the news for today, with the news in brief first.
The federal government is set to unveil a tough new plan to target the growing use of vapes, particularly among young people. 1 in 6 teenagers between the ages of 14 and 17 has used a vape, a statistic the Health Minister Mark Butler wants to see shrink, warning easy access is creating a new generation of nicotine addicts. The government is setting aside $234 million in this month's budget as it works to stop the importation of non-prescription vapes and ban retail sales. The Reserve Bank Board will meet this afternoon, with analysts widely predicting it'll keep interest rates on hold for the second month in a row. The meeting, which comes a week before the federal budget, will consider the latest data on migration and inflation as it weighs up whether the cash rate should remain at 3.6% after pausing 10 straight months of raises in April. The culinary community is in mourning and fans across the nation are in shock after the death of chef and MasterChef judge Jock Zonfrillo at the age of 46. Victoria Police says there were no suspicious circumstances surrounding his death but has not revealed a cause. Zonfrillo operated renowned restaurants in Adelaide and Sydney over 2 decades. The UN is warning that more than 800,000 people could end up fleeing Sudan's ongoing violence, including more than 580,000 Sudanese. It says the fighting between the Sudanese army and a rival paramilitary group has already caused about 73,000 people to escape the country.
Today, well, ladies and gentlemen, update with the news in brief. Now let's take a look at some of the selected news briefly, in details. Well, the coronation fever is underway, and I can't wait to be at the Tattersall's this Friday for the big screen and go with the governor and fellow Order of Australia medal recipients to watch that, and in one of its kind dinner function, a limited number of people will be admitted to this dinner. We are fortunate to be part of that, and that's on this Friday. So the coronation countdown begins.
While musician Daron White is excited about parading through London's streets with an uplifting coronation carnival set, he acknowledges that some might find it hard to connect with the occasion. He is a descendant of migrants from Jamaica, a former British colony that has called for Britain's royals to address their historical ties to slavery.
Whilst for some people there may be a slight disconnection in terms of the actual event and maybe the history behind it, that I think with music there can be that sort of connection.
With the poor state of the UK economy, some question the cost of the ceremony.
Even though it is good to have a kind of catharsis, kind of release as a nation, it's also strange that this event would happen at a time where, and cost so much at a time where people don't really have the money to get by on.
It's a common sentiment across the capital.
Is it fair that there is so much attention and resource being put into a massive coronation celebration when people are in record numbers having to rely upon food banks, are facing poverty on an unbelievable scale?
Southall in West London is home to a large Indian population, many of whom will be celebrating on the streets on Coronation Day. One local business owner remembers fondly the time when Charles and Camilla visited his restaurant.
That is the greatness of your king, who actually listens to you, who wants to know from where you've come. Are you happy? Are you doing good work? So I think he is the people's king.
There have been varied responses to what has been promised to be a modern coronation, with changes including members of the public being invited to pledge their allegiance to the new monarch out loud on Saturday. Yvonne Yong, ABC News.
And then it will be an amazing view, an amazing scene. Well, of course, it does come with a cost, but it is, once in a lifetime occurrence. It doesn't always happen. So anyway, cost is another matter. But now for the next one, as we know, we are in the DV Awareness Week. Why are migrants overrated in this sector?
The signs were there, but Prisha never knew she was a victim of domestic violence.
I was not allowed to talk to my family over the call. I was not allowed to go out of the home.
A neighbour had heard the commotion coming from Prisha's home for months when she decided to act, secretly giving her the number for DV Connect.
She threw it towards me, and then she said, and she gave me a gesture to ring on the number.
Prisha escaped her husband and took her child with her. Now she works with victims of domestic violence and has realised stories like hers are common, especially in migrant communities. A study from Monash University shows 1 in 3 migrant women have experienced domestic violence.
People are very scared to speak up about it. It's because it's like, it's bringing shame to the family.
Sonia Kamari and Bushra Aman work at a multicultural health organisation in Brisbane and say more than half of their clients have experienced or are experiencing domestic violence.
Women who are on temporary visa would tell us that they've been threatened, that if they go out and talk to somebody else, they will be deported.
I think some of the most vulnerable people are in those really perilous positions where they're on temporary visas or visas that are attached to perhaps a spouse who's using violence in the relationship.
Those who work in DV prevention say the biggest challenge right now is awareness, and the responsibility lies with everyone in communities, religious groups, workplaces and in the media, making sure women know what domestic violence looks like and where to find help.
You shouldn't be feeling ashamed that you're seeking help.
Laura Lavelle, ABC News, Brisbane.
You are up to date, as we know that when they talk about the facts and figures, still, I would say the multicultural community is way behind in reporting. Many incidents have not been reported, so the facts and figures that we have are not 100%, they're not accurate. The numbers would be far greater. You would be surprised. Well, right now looking at Lauren Cranston, who's been jailed for a role in tax fraud schemes.
Lauren Cranston has been in prison for 6 weeks. Today she learned she's staying there until at least 2028. Cranston is one of 5 people, including her brother, found guilty of 2 charges over the Plutus payroll scam, which ran for 3 years. Her lawyer's argument she only knowingly participated in its final year was rejected.
I do not accept that at any time Ms Cranston was lacking in curiosity about what she was doing.
What they did was stole money meant to be paid as taxes to the ATO through a complex web of companies. Lauren Cranston looked after emails and processed pay runs. She received $181,000, but greed wasn't found to be the sole motivation.
Her participation was primarily the result of a misguided sense of loyalty to the people directing the conspiracies, particularly her brother, Adam Cranston.
As he imposed a maximum 8-year sentence, the judge said the ATO missed out on over $100 million in the years immediately before the pandemic.
During that period, the calls on services supplied by government were as urgent as they have been at any time since the Great Depression.
Appearing by video link, Lauren Cranston began to cry when she learned the sentence and covered her mouth with one hand. According to a psychologist's report, she still maintains her innocence, and the judge found she's shown no contrition. The Cranstons are the children of former ATO Deputy Commissioner Michael Cranston, who's not accused of involvement. Adam Cranston is considered one of the scam's architects and is yet to be sentenced. Jamie McKinnell, ABC News, Sydney.
They come up with all these schemes, but they always get caught. Well, right now, let's go to South Australia, where the Premier is looking at the improvements in healthcare sector.
Peter Malinauskas, welcome to the program. In March, you said that primary health care in this country was collapsing. Is $2.2 billion in federal funding enough to fix that?
Well, thanks for having us, Laura. Look, the short answer to that question is no, but it is certainly welcome. I'm very grateful for the fact, as I think most state premiers are, that the Prime Minister and the new federal government is serious about doing something about the GP crisis that we see across the country. $2.2 billion will make a difference. There are practical measures that the Commonwealth is taking as part of that that I welcome. But the truth is we are going to need to see a lot more effort than that if we're going to address what really is a cratering of primary health care and accessibility to GPs around the country.
Well, can you quantify how much more needs to be done in that primary health care sector to fix those problems?
Well, I mean, Deloitte Access Economics is telling us that there is going to be a shortage of approximately 11,000 FTE GPs by the end of this decade. Now, that's a very substantial number. We don't see anything like that number coming into the system anytime soon. So just on workforce development alone, there has to be serious work done. But just to provide a bit of context for your viewers, Laura, what we're seeing in South Australia, which I understand is being replicated around the country, is just not more people coming into our emergency departments in hospitals, but the fact that people are coming in a lot sicker. People who have rolled up at our emergency departments over the last 12 months, who we get categorised as Category 2, which means they've got to be seen within 10 minutes, has exploded by 60%, whereas the low category acuity has been reduced by 20 to 25%. So it's not just more people rolling up to our emergency departments, they're rolling up sicker, Laura, and that speaks to people not getting access to a GP when they need it most.
Well, looking at the announcements from Friday's meeting, it seems on all of the issues that you discussed, whether it's Medicare, the NDIS or housing, there hasn't actually been any movement on the underlying funding agreements between the Commonwealth and the states since the Albanese government came to office. Are you concerned that the federal government is on a bit of a go-slow on some of these issues because of its budgetary problems?
Well, clearly the Commonwealth, as is the case with most state governments around the country, with maybe the exception of Western Australia, is under fiscal strain, and they've got to make decisions and are held to account for their fiscal policy as is prudent. But I don't think the federal government's on a go-slow. I think the Prime Minister has made it clear repeatedly at National Cabinet and outside afterwards that he accepts the #1 priority of National Cabinet is seeing reform to our primary healthcare system so we can see a better delivery of services within our hospital system around the nation. And I think when the Prime Minister says this is a #1 priority, we expect to see action that follows, and a $2 billion commitment is a pretty good start, notwithstanding the fact that clearly there needs to be more movement if we're going to address this crisis in a way I think most Australians now understand needs to happen, because this isn't just statistical anymore. This is what Australians are living out on a daily basis, and they hear about it anecdotally when they talk to loved ones as well.
So there you are, up to date on Australian Indian Radio, and it is something that it will be, ongoing, and of course the repercussions, and it's as it meant, it's not just the stats anymore. It's out there, it's happening, and it's real. All right, now for our lead out story is Jock Zaframaz. He will be remembered as a generous person.
This dreadful news was received just hours before the latest series of Australian MasterChef was due to go to air last night. That was filmed, as you say, at the Melbourne Showgrounds behind me here. And we heard from the other judges as well as another celebrity chef, Jamie Oliver, who was set to appear alongside Zonfrillo on the latest series. And he posted on social media of his absolute shock to hear of Zonfrillo's sudden death. He says that he had the best time working with him on this year's MasterChef, saying that he was very generous with his time and spirit in the show and will be so very missed. Gordon Ramsay says he's saddened by the devastating news of Zonfrillo's passing and says that he truly enjoyed the time that he worked with him. And his friend Jimmy Barnes says Jock was like a brother to me and we made each other laugh and cry. I am speechless. Zonfrillo operated renowned restaurants in Adelaide and Sydney before becoming a MasterChef judge in 2019, and he was a fierce advocate for Australian native ingredients and often sourced ingredients from remote Aboriginal communities as a way of celebrating Indigenous culture. Police say they discovered his body after conducting a welfare check at a Carlton address in the early hours of yesterday morning, but as you say, it's not believed to be suspicious. And his family family has also issued a statement saying that they have shattered hearts, and he is an irreplaceable father of 4, husband, brother and son. And they've implored all that knew him to remember this proud Scot in your hearts the next time that you have a whiskey.
Steph, thank you. And if you or someone you know is experiencing distress, please contact Lifeline at the number 13 11 14.
And there you are, ladies and gentlemen, and such a thriving career, such a well-known person, and only 46 of age, gone too soon. May God rest his soul in peace. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to look at some of our functions and events taking place right here in Brisbane. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you in this segment. It's been wonderful having your company this morning, the second day of May 2023, and it's gone up to 16 degrees and mostly cloudy. It might get up to 20, as I said before, and remaining mostly cloudy right here in Brisbane. Well, it's been always wonderful to have your company on the show. If there is any feedback, we'd like to receive your feedback. Do so, post that in the comment section. And once again, until tomorrow, it's goodbye from us.